At home today, I return.
Tones that you're hearing
Close to the end of the day. The Earth Day. Every day is the day of the Earth. The everyday of the Earth. I've forgotten again in the noise. The increasing noise. Climate change, COVID, and grief and death. What have we learned? 41 leaders assembled today for the Earth Day ceremony. The abyssal plunge closer at hand. It's near midnight. When I began my ecological journey, over 1 year and 50 ago, they mocked my concern. Why don't you forget the little flowers and the little birds? It's not manly. Men are about growth and power and fuel oil. At home today, I photographed my kitchen fruit platter. We still life, but not still. Apples, tangerine, pears, strawberries, blackberries, kiwis, bananas, lemons, and limes. Wild and tame.
During COVID-19, integral consultant and tropical underwater acoustic recorded
and south, west, and southern
to help us understand how a slowdown human activity can affect the underwater soundscape.
Newly discovered
Recording here shows 2 10-second snippets
and the sound
and highlights the contrast between underwater sound and a boat passing without during a period of relative quiet.
Quenching the thirst of springtime. Honeybees, elephant, children, rivers, forests and grasslands, glaciers and cities alike. 40 world leaders assembled today for the Earth, they say. Hopeful, very hopeful. The abyssal plunge closer at hand. It's near.
Air is so fresh. All day long. I hear all sound of birds chirping. Usually I hear them during sunset, sunrise, Now I see them around me.
April 22nd, 2021.
They're just feeling
Daphne Park in
good
Savannah,
and
Georgia.
having a good time.
The city's largest recreational park, located by picturesque East Victory Drive, with magnificent palm trees and flowers along the entire median of the street. 2 birds resting on an oak branch, engaged in discourse by the nearby lake. Passing by joggers adjusting their iWatches and AirPods. Traffic lights change. A big truck zooming down eastbound lane of East Victory Drive. The sky is blue and clear, the sun is shining.
And the lack of people.
The birds are looking away from the lake,
down the
blinded
street.
by the reflected sunlight
You can hear
glare
a lot
of an
of
empty
birds.
bag of chips floating in the water.
And
It is April
sounds
22nd,
that normally get
2021.
covered up by
Daphne Park
human
in Savannah,
activity.
Georgia. I'm sitting on a bench facing
Also
the lake.
present is a
It is
deer,
my attempt at
which
exhausting a place
uses
in
our
Savannah.
lot next door for feeding, and you can hear the deer eating.
On the porch,
live in the MCT on the 16th floor of a downtown tower. This town is notorious for its many demonstrations. We often hear explosions, drums, speeches, and chants in the distance.
the rapidly
Today, it is taxi cabs honking for the right to use bus lanes. In the trees below, you notice even more than usual the chirping parrots, starlings, swallows, and seagulls.
The sun is here
Birds chirping. Birds chirping.
from around 9
Birds chirping.
to 1 every day.
Cars passing. Birds chirping. Jacket rustling. Birds chirping.
It It's Earth Day 2021, and my special ecosystem is the San Francisco Giants Stadium. Number 41, Wilmer Flores, is coming up to bat in the bottom of the fifth inning. Wilmer Flores' walk-up music is the theme song from the television show Friends, and they talked about this on the scoreboard, how he used all the seasons of Friends to learn more English. There are 9,000 people in a stadium that seats about 43,000, and everybody is
present is
congratulating each other for being here and showing so much love. And it's a brilliant birthday in this specific ecology.
Different sounds, the same sounds. Noticing different things that were always there, so they're not really that different. Maybe I'm different.
This year, I forgot the plastic. It wasn't art so much this year.
Everything's the same.
Last year, the work became an exhibition for bees.
But it feels good.
Butterflies.
Strangely. People are finally coming together.
Butterflies.
Noticing things.
I have not seen the bees this year.
Things that were always there.
Not on the fire escape full of wildflowers blooming in buckets where cherry tomatoes grew last year.
What does the truth
started
look
in
like?
a sudden pause under bright blue skies, amid the hope for less particulate matter in the air.
And manifesting itself differently now that
by August, I washed the black soot off their ripe red
we're in the
bodies.
middle, somewhere between everything and nothing.
Still we ate them.
Adapt because there's no other way to get through it.
And did not talk of lead, though we spoke of cars quite often.
Maybe
and with
this is fuel.
Hate Street and Divisadero.
Something.
But I digress.
Strangely,
back
no
here
like
in the backyard, cooler, less sun.
Middle Harbor Shoreline Park in Oakland, California.
The wildflowers still starting, or in that awkward, spindly adolescence.
Just past high tide.
Having suffered the abuses of new puppies.
Gentle waves lap at the
neighbors,
shore.
first a German Shepherd, later a golden
Cranes and
retriever.
trucks in the adjacent port of Oakland are busy
I have forgoed any thoughts of a dog amid
geometries and forms and materials of this place.
So life
register
is more
layer
generally
histories
now,
and how humans continue to remake and unmake it. The tidal wetland,
the relief of a year
terminus
cannot
of the
be
first
understated.
transcontinental railroad, a bustling naval
The wind chimes still clang.
and now once again a restored
I deadhead
wetland
the
nestled in the
ornamentals.
middle of a commercial port.
Wind. We will recommit to a reduction of methane. My mother-in-law still mourns his failed presidency. Her middle son, now dead, asked to visit us this time last year. We said no then, decisively. By the time we got to Hawaii, the coroner would not let us see his body.
Pigeons peck at gates, birds chirp on gutters, bacon baps for policemen, cyclists rolling up stairs, school playground happily shrieks, construction site hammers tinker, white van deliveries rumble, 365, same but very different.
From the studio, Earth Day 2021.
This is the rain hitting the ground under a cedar tree at the corner of our house at dusk. In the background you can hear the rain in our gutters.
You are hearing my 2-month-old son, Flower, cooing and making sounds during his playtime. My whole environment is filled with his presence since he came to this earth. At the background, you can also hear Vice President Pence with coronavirus task force daily briefing. this is our environment today.
I can't actually identify the bird, but I can identify the coffer. That's Tony, my kind neighbor. He's a landscape
I recorded the chickens in our shed
and this was recorded
just before nightfall as they
mostly in our garden.
compete for positions on the roost.
Tony's too.
Audio recorded in Cashmere, Christchurch, New Zealand on Friday, April 23rd, 2021, New Zealand time at 10 a.m. This audio recording is suburban street and yard with bellbirds, Waka Waka.
Diamond Heights is perched on a hill in the middle of San Francisco, and it feels like a hidden oasis. There are city and bay views for miles in every direction,
a lot about
and
sweetness.
within a few minutes from my house, a deeply satisfying walk that descends into the green darkness of Glen Canyon, with modern homes by Eichler and others that sit on stilts high above the canyon. Although I'd planned to go into this canyon today to record nature on Earth Day for this project, and this was actually recorded a few meters from my front door. Today was a beautiful sunny day that I missed almost in its entirety, and as I walked out the front door, the wind was picking up and the fog was already rolling in. This wind chime on my neighbour's house was really loud, and it just seemed like the perfect way to capture the reciprocal relationship between nature, the wind, and humans, this man-made wind chime. Having studied phenomenology earlier in my life, I just really love anything that directs and alerts my consciousness to the moment, and this did that perfectly.
Within the bustle of everyday life, we can always choose to find these moments of respite, to connect with nature that we are very much a part of.
Hello. This Ansible recording was made proximate to Yalamu, aka San Francisco, and 04-22-20, aka Earth Day. The exact place time cannot be shared for reasons that cannot be explained.
Dinosaur bird.
It might have been made for Ursula before or possibly during the big one, or for someone who might be going to have lived a long time from now in Northern California.
Right. Corona crown. Crawl. Silence broken by jet bound to airport. A noisy car. And one more jet crossing the sky. Bound to jet fuel and car fuel and wanderlust.
This recording
Star-crossed civilization in halting liminal space under a clear sky.
Maybe a 15-20 minute walk
from dark feathered dinosaur bird
windy Earth Day,
to metallic bird, an eon of life and culture. A question mark. Will we survive and thrive? Is this the dark night before the sunrise?
But the ocean is beautiful.
The slow boiling frog? Or the chrysalis before the water?
First immediately.
We must be something.
Created a bit of an illusion as far as the horizon. But overall, beautiful day, and despite everything going on, happy to be alive.
Roughly 17 overlapping recordings of bird sounds taken throughout the day. April 22nd, 2020, Berkeley, California.
This is a recording of me using handfuls of slow work reclaimed wood material for a sculpture. Sculpting on Earth Day 2020, San Francisco, Dog Patch.
Metabolic rifts. I made these plant bodies to go in a shell that should have opened by now. Now they sit strangely, 4 in my backyard, 2 at my studio. I check them daily. In these spaces, one too sunny, the other too shady, the sound of wind from the ocean, the sound of birds, the sound of my neighbor on video calls, listening to the seeds, to the plants.
From isolation, construction.
Trying to have as little hand as possible, yet still making fake choices. While I try to learn from them, and they do all the work. We are one of the youngest species. What does this young virus have to tell us about ourselves? I listen as they go through adversity. The lupin, especially promising, cutting at the stem. I let the
on the Grand Boulevard of Detroit, 4 blocks east of the overextended hospital. The absent cars make it possible to hear the near train, which used to be only living in the ears of the dogs.
Somewhere between Stuart and colonialist. But I like to think of it as a collaboration.
Every day of the pandemic, people in my neighborhood began to howl at precisely 8 p.m. The dogs and birds usually
Because of the COVID-19 shelter-in-place, we are physically separated from our neighbors and isolated in our houses. At 8 p.m. every evening, we have found a way to tell each other that we are close by. We howl. We let off steam, get out of the house,
This is a recording of my refrigerator, which sounds
blocks away. It is
completely different depending on where in the kitchen you stand in relation to it. In the recording, I started at the front of the refrigerator and then moved my body and the recording device around the back of the refrigerator, which is where it sounds the loudest and most like a very distant ocean.
Meow! Meow!
This is a mix that I did while I was working at the Library of Natural Sounds of the Oakland Museum back in the day in the 1990s. And I made this with advice of biologist Paul Matzner, so that the environment that is recorded here sounds as close to natural environment. And it's mixed in a way that every sound is placed in the correct acoustic position within the recording.
We'll be here now. Trapped inside. My ecology is this. My ecology is music. Although I live in a national park. This song is thinking about how I could walk outside and listen to birds, which are abundant here. But the reality of it is limited interaction with humans. And when we say how we hear now, I have to think about how I don't hear the human voice. because it comes to me through synthetic channels like Zoom, and I don't get to hear the voice with the human attached to it, and their pauses and their gazes and their asides, because Zoom is not great for asides. So how has this moment with this pandemic changed how we hear now? Profoundly. And my ecological comment is I miss the voice. I miss voices in real time. Yeah, human voices.
This is morning and evening sounds from my front porch in East Oakland, California.
This is a recording of street life at 7:01 p.m. You can hear people in the background cheering on healthcare heroes and other essential workers who are supporting the community throughout This recording was taken on my back patio sometime between 2:30 and 4 p.m. You can hear some bird life, and also faintly you can hear some construction happening. So the recording that I made for Earth Day 2020 is of Golden Gate Heights Park, which my housemate and I are both working from home. Is a park near my house in San Francisco. Working from the study or working from the dining room. There's a lot of birds and wildlife and trees, and she was in the study. It's pretty wild. It's like forest perched on top of a hill. I live in a neighborhood that borders Chinatown. It's not uncommon to hear people speaking many languages. There are families that live next to my apartment building who often speak on the phone or to each other with windows open, and I overhear their conversations. Although I cannot understand.
A short recording of the wildlife in El Granada, California, April 2020.
As I began to start my workday, a fire truck passed by. The window in the dining room where I was working was open, and the sound was incredibly loud.
The term ecology is a difficult world to imagine at this current time of shelter in place. We as members of various world ecologies are asked to take refuge in our own built environment, inside the very structures which were envisioned and implemented to protect us from natural elements. The term ecology in this case is a difficult world to imagine at this current time of shelter as we isolate ourselves. We as members of various world ecologies are asked to take refuge in our own built that exists outside of ourselves, the very structures simultaneously envisioned and implemented to protect us from natural elements, constructed within the isolated by bounds of our own shelter. It is at this time as we isolate ourselves. The sound I have recorded from my environment while we detach of our natural origin, natural ecology. What you hear is the sound of a busy machine. Working and recreating natural processes of additives constructed within the isolated protected bounds. These are 3D printers using naturally occurring calcium. The sound I have recorded as a friable powder material with fused chemical deposition process. The sound to recreate underwater ecology. Working and recreating here the excited chirp of additives and phase and chemical formation aqueous solution. These are 3D printers using naturally occurring calcium carbonate as a friable powder material with fused chemical deposition. They are in fact to recreate underwater towards the ecology of more. You can hear the excited chirp combining built forms naturally occurring to aqueous service to non-ferrous nozzles for the next additive. While many anxieties and dark feelings fester, while these sounds may be unfamiliar or unnatural, they are in this specific sound reminds me of the complex ecology of more high various ecologies that combining built forms naturally have to reframe in service of the question of for whom we build. While many anxieties, a departure from the desolation would result of this current situation of our time, and into the optimism. This specific sound reminds me of the complex relationship between various ecologies that exist on this earth, and perhaps a reframe of the question of for whom we build and why. A departure from the desolation and despair of current Anthropocene and into the optimism and hope of a broader symbiosis.